Um,
Yeah. And the kids have been busy, obviously, and
yeah. Do they have any more
Halloween.
races? Are they racing anymore?
Yeah. So Hannah had Head of the Fish on, or Hannah and Keegan rode in the Head of the Fish on Sunday,
Mm.
and Keegan has his mod champs on tomorrow.
Okay. Wow. Oh my,
Yeah.
yeah. Busy, busy. Yeah.
Yeah.
We got pull the plug here.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh Regatta. So
Hmm.
yeah, so that's tomorrow. I'm not rowing in it. I can't
Okay.
even go because my son has a cross country sectional race. So
Oh,
and
okay.
he runs at like noon. So I know the
Oh.
Regatta will be starting early and I could head out there and
Hmm.
maybe talk to some people, but I figure it's the total opposite direction of where I need to go to do sectionals for him. So I'm like, let me just concentrate on mom
Hmm.
a little bit.
Hmm.
You know how that is. Sometimes you're just like, okay,
Yes.
I'm just not going to do what I thought I was going to do this weekend. I'm going to do what
Yeah.
they're doing this weekend. So
Hmm. Definitely.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's exciting. And I want to hear all about your Head of the Charles experience.
Oh my gosh. Like the head of the Charles was amazing. The coolest part was the weather. The weather was
Yeah.
it was just so nice. Like I like for a regatta weekend, that was like totally got pampered. Like
Hmm.
the drive in was easy. I even had
Hmm.
like the it was like the University of Michigan trailer like
I
pulled
saw
up
that.
like just like it like just as I got on the thruway. So like it was just kind of like even though it's an easy trip out to Boston, you just take the 90, but
Hmm.
I just kind of following them and just like it was just and like the I think it was the super moon. So
Oh,
like
yeah.
even that night as I was driving, as I was getting closer to Boston, like it wasn't even that dark out because the super moon was out. And then I got there and the weather was just so nice. And my
Hmm.
friends let me stay at their apartment, which was in Somerville, which is
Hmm.
basically just a couple T stops from Harvard where I got off and started walking towards the course. And
Nice.
yeah, it was just amazing. It was just a really fun time. Rowing in Color had their tent right
Hmm.
across from Falls Bar.
Okay.
So, so that was like really, really nice because we were in the center of all of the like the vendors and everything. So we were
Ooh.
right on the path. And I mean, I saw like everybody that I knew, everybody was like walking by and like saying hi. And it was just really, really cool. The girls that I rode with were amazing. Oh my gosh. Like it felt like we've been rowing together forever. Like we all
Aw.
kind of like it felt like we all approached it with the same amount of like we're doing this for each other.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's like I felt like everybody was not on their best rowing behavior, but just like everybody was just being very, very conscious about like following the person in front of you. This is not a me, this is a we type of experience. And I felt like that's what really helped us just kind of meld together. And we almost didn't practice. There's like a little
Oh.
bit of a miscommunication. The coordinator didn't think that we were all going to be able to be there to practice, but we had like a separate text thread that we're like, oh, yeah,
Oh.
we're all gonna show up at 3 o'clock. We're gonna practice. We like all showed up and like there wasn't a boat for us to take out.
Oh
So,
no.
so the other eight had gone out and done their practice and basically we hot seated and we had the, like the Bat Logic shoes.
Hmm.
So like because we hot seated, we didn't get our size shoes. So I like jammed my feet into like some type of really, really small shoe. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, it was just neat. Like having your own shoes like that are your size, like I mean, that's the bee's knees. I mean, like it
Yeah.
felt so connected because it's
Hmm.
like my foot wasn't swimming around inside of the shoe. So in the back of my mind, when I have the ability to switch out the foot stretcher in my double, I'm gonna definitely get a set of those Batlogic shoes because they're really, really nice. Like the clip in, the clip out, like we had one girl in the boat who rows with them all the time and was like, she checked everybody's shoes. She's like, I don't want anybody losing a shoe like halfway through the race.
Now,
But
they're expensive, right?
oh, they are because I
Yeah.
think you have to get a new foot plate, and the
Hmm.
foot plate tends to be what's expensive. Like even just a plain foot plate, like without the shoes on it, is like $200 or $300, and then
Hmm.
to get the actual shoes, I think the shoes aren't that expensive. I mean, I think they're about the cost of like a running shoe, so I think it comes in at like
Oh,
150 or something like that.
okay. Okay.
Um, but in combination, like if it's
Yeah,
your own boat, you're buying a new foot plate and you're buying new shoes, it just starts to get pricey. So,
sure. Yeah.
um, and then you need like if you're buying those shoes, you want to make sure that like all the boats in your club potentially have
Yeah.
that set up so that you can use them pretty often. So,
Hmm.
but it made a huge difference. I was so
Hmm.
surprised. Like, I mean, I hadn't really thought about it that I'd really never really rode in shoes that fit just my foot, but it
Hmm.
makes a huge difference.
Definitely, definitely. And yeah, so there is definitely some drawbacks and positives. We've talked about it on our club, and it just
Mhm.
comes down to, I think, just an overall cost issue.
Yeah.
Can you walk in them? Like, can you
You
walk
can't,
down?
I don't think you can walk in them. I
Mm,
think we popped them in before we went down to
okay.
the dock. So I don't think you can walk in them because they have like a plastic connection thing on the back.
Mm,
You have to kind of like slide into the little connectors
ah,
there. So you
okay.
have to do that like and you have to and like if you don't know how to like I mean you can fumble with it a little bit if you
Hmm.
don't know exactly what the how the connection works. But the
Hmm.
one girl who used them all the time, like she was able to stamp them in and pull them out pretty easily. And after the like we took them out ourselves, we had her put them in just so to make sure they were put in correctly.
Hmm.
But like to take them out, it was just like you push this little tab and then you just pull the shoe down. But I mean, it's nice to be able to have your feet fit in your
Yeah.
boat. You can imagine like if you're in a club that had all of the boats outfitted like that, it would just be
Hmm.
really nice to be able to go from a single and then to go into the eight and then to go into a four and like always have your shoes fit. Like that
Yeah.
would be yeah, really, really cool. And
Eh,
like we borrowed a boat from King
okay.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So I had coached a king boat. Like when I was at Mercy, they had a
Hmm.
lightweight, I think it was like a flyweight. Like I think the average was like 130 or something like that for that boat. And I always felt like that boat was just so beautiful through the water. Like there was just
Hmm.
something about like, and I didn't know whether it was like the lightweights who were rowing it or if it was just the way the boat kind of reacts in the water. But like, not for nothing. Like I was like very impressed and like there was
Yeah.
like this one time where we were doing I keep telling the story. I think I told the story to everybody, but like we were doing pause drills on the way back to the dock, just kind of taking our time because we were kind of lined up behind other boats. And the coxswain, like we were coming around a corner and she had us on the pause. And like I think right after we came out of the finish to the pause, she may have put just a touch of rudder on the boat. And but the boat didn't tip, it like glided. It did one of these, and I was like,
Ooh.
oh my goodness. I'm like in love with this. And like it was just, I mean, the boat felt smooth. It felt like I don't know, like and you know how sometimes when you row in a boat, it has like a feel to it. Like
Yep.
it felt like light, it felt airy, it felt like we could make it move. Like when we put the power on it, I felt like it boat responded. So like
Hmm.
it might have also helped that it was a brand new boat. So,
Hmm. Yeah.
it always
Yeah.
helps, to have, have the best of the best and like, a
Hmm.
brand new boat to row in.
Yeah.
Um, but it was just neat. I really liked it. And they had the boys in the boat out there
Hmm. I
with
saw
the
your picture.
wood,
Yep.
yeah, with the wood look. And like they said that that's like a fabric that they put in between, like in the mold. And
Oh,
you can get like any type of boat done like that.
wow.
So you can have a single made like that. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that's my dream boat. If anyone from King is listening, can you send me send me the one with the wood finish that I would take a midweight midweight single with the with the wood finish on it. Like that would be
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, it was the boats were so pretty. I mean, Hudson was there, King was there, Flippy was there, like all the beautiful boats were all out, and it
Hmm.
was just I mean, it's the head of the Charles, and like
Yeah.
the weather was so good. Like I just can't like the weather was winning
Hmm.
all weekend long. Like every single day was nice. Like I had never been to a regatta like that. Like you know how you go to a regatta and like Friday's good, Saturday's awful, or Sunday's
Hmm.
good and Saturday was awful. Like it
Yep.
was a consistent and I think like the weather on Saturday when we rode was even better than we practiced on Friday. Like we got up to the
Wow.
camp and there
Uh-huh.
was no wind up there. I was like, this is
Wow.
wild. It was just It was just crazy. And we had a coxswain issue. So we were supposed to have a certain coxswain and they weren't available. And then we were supposed to get another coxswain and they weren't available. So we ended up getting a coxswain who was very familiar with the course.
Ooh,
And she was
nice.
just, yeah, she was an animal. Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was crazy. Like, so we were coming to the Ellicott. I always want to call it
Elliot.
Elliot.
Elliot,
I
right?
always
Yep.
call it Elliott because I think of like
Yeah.
I think of
Yeah.
UV. A little
Yep.
shout out to UV there. The Elliott Bridge. And so we're coming, you know how like there's that curve there and there's all the buoys and then like there's double buoys, like a travel lane buoy plus like
Yes.
horse
I
buoy.
saw they did that. They added that recently. I don't know if it was
Yeah.
last year or this year, but I did see that.
Yeah, and it was, I mean, the coxswain called that the buoys were gonna go underneath our riggers, and I was like, oh God. Like that's what I thought to myself. But she like literally each buoy went gently underneath our rigger. We didn't touch them. I was like,
Wow.
wow. I'm like, this girl is on a mission. And then
Mm-hmm.
we had a boat in front of us. Like we were really catching up to
Yes.
this boat like the whole time. And so by
Mm-hmm.
the time we got to the bridge, like the coxswain is like yelling. Like I was like trying not to pay attention to everything that was going on. I'm like, you are not steering. You shouldn't care. Um, but she was just like, she's like, you must yield. She was just like, we are coming through. You are taking the long way home. We are, like it was like one of those types of thing. I was like, oh my gosh. Like it was just, yeah, it was just neat. It was a fun race. And like, our hope was that we just didn't get passed and we were able to
Mm-hmm.
pass a boat. I mean, and like we were in the club eights. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like I think one of the eights in the race like did the fastest course um time. Like so it was like all the like I mean like UConn was in the race. I was just like
Mm-hmm.
we're just kind of like, oh my goodness. But out of the boats that were actually club boats and not like college students,
Mm-hmm.
um, there were 12 of those. We came in fifth out of those.
Wow.
So I was like, that's a really great showing. I mean, we
Mm-hmm.
came in 33rd out of 42 or something
Mm-hmm.
like that. So like in the overall,
Mm-hmm.
not, I mean, it is what it is, but
Yeah.
like I think for a boat that only practiced together once,
Mm-hmm.
technically, and there was like a shout out to our blade work. I think one of like I haven't listened to all of the little captions, but someone had
Mm-hmm.
told me that one of the different views, like because they had the commentators at different areas,
Yeah. Yep.
like they mentioned our blade work, and I'm just like,
Nice.
I was like, good. But yeah, it was so much fun. I'm so glad I
Good.
did it.
Yeah.
Everybody that I was in the boat with, everybody from Rowing Color was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Met so many people. They had the first Indigenous
I
boat.
saw that one too.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, that was so neat. And two of the girls in the four were sisters. So it
Uh-huh.
was, and their mom was there with them, and like it was just really, really beautiful. They did the red paint, like the handprint for missing and exploited Indigenous women. And so like they
Mm-hmm.
put the paint on the oars, and it was just like a really like kind of like moving moment. Like I was like, this is just amazing. And they had a great race. Like everybody just did so well. And it was just great. I mean, it was just so much fun. And like I said, the weather.
So did you
Like
use a team's blades? Because it used King's boat and that was
we
King
used
lent
King's
you the
boat and
boat. Okay.
Marist had lent us the blades.
Oh,
So
that's
yeah,
nice.
so we borrowed their blades and yeah, it was the wild thing about it is like we had unis and I think it was Rival Kit was doing our unis and they there's something that mixed up in the warehouse. I guess that's a UK company, so they didn't bring the actual our actual unis. I guess they're still in the UK somewhere. I don't know. But they did give us these black and it's like a head of the Charles uni. I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool.
Mhm.
But like I haven't wore a uni to race in like 1,000 years. Like it's never that warm. Like
Yeah,
I mean, I've actually worn a uni underneath stuff, but like I
right.
have worn a uni. Like it was warm enough that like I didn't bring anything to keep warm with to get up to the top. I wore
Hmm.
uni the whole time. Like
Wow. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, for me, like, I mean, look at me, I'm in my sweatshirt. Like, I get cold all the time. So
Hmm.
like for me to wear a uni, like, I mean, like it's like 2 or 3 hours, like straight up
Yeah.
just like it was warm on the water, but not like oppressively hot.
Hmm.
Like I said, it was perfect weather and just
Yeah.
like I don't know if I go to do the Charles ever again, if it'll ever match up to that kind of like comfortable, like
Yeah,
yeah, wearing shorts, you know, and just kind of walking
yeah.
around, having a good time, like almost being like I will in the morning it was kind of warm or kind of cold.
Mm-hmm.
So like I had like I think I wore like my UV jacket because I still had the UV
Oh.
jacket. So I was like, let me wear my UV jacket, but like I had to take it off. Like by the time
Mm-hmm.
I walked down to the course, it was hot. So
Mm-hmm.
like I was in short sleeves and then on Saturday I was in the uni and Sunday I kind of mulled around and just kind of talked to people and stopped at the C2 tent. Did you see that they brought back they don't want you to call it the dyno, but it's the dyno.
The
The
dino.
yeah, so it's the strength erg. You remember they had like I remember West Side had a bunch of them. Like you sit on it and you could do like bench pull, you could do leg
Gonna look
press.
it up right now.
Yeah, yeah, the see-through dyno. So it was like a basically you could track like strength metrics with it. So
Oh, okay.
so bench pull, bench press, leg press. So they brought it back.
Oh, I
Now
see. Okay.
yeah, so now it's called the strength erg. The
Okay.
profile of it is not too big.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's about the same profile as like the erg bike. It probably
Mm-hmm.
takes up about that much room. Um,
Okay.
super neat, and they were showing some different ways you can use it. If anyone from C2 is watching, I could use one in my clinic if you want to send me one. Um, so yeah, I mean, it was just fun. You know how it is as you're walking
Yeah.
around and seeing all the different things. And there were a couple, I think Myro was one of
Gyro.
these type of new things. Like
Hmm.
it's like a tablet that you attach to the C2 machine that kind of turns it into a hydro rowish kind of experience.
Oh yeah, I see that. Cool.
Yeah. So what else did I see when I was there? Uh stopped at Croker, had a great conversation about seat pads and
Mm-hmm.
um like they have a new or that you can adjust like the length pretty easily. I think it's like a set screw, and then you can kind of, but it's not like a set screw. It's like kind of it was way easier than like what you usually do to adjust an oar.
Mm-hmm.
They've also have the new buttons that you can, or not new, but they were showing me the ones where you can flip up the little lever. You could change the inboard
Oh.
pretty easy with the collar there. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so that was, I mean, that was neat. I tried to stop at as many tents as I could, but
Mm-hmm.
I really wanted to stop at Piner, didn't get there.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to kind of share my story of my boat that I had repaired, but I didn't
Yeah.
get a chance to go down and chat with them because you know,
Mm-hmm.
you stop at every tent and you
Yeah.
talk to someone for 10 or 15 minutes, like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you're 4 hours deep before you know it, and you've only talked to about, you know, 5 or 6 people. So, you know,
Yeah.
so but yeah, it was amazing. Like we should try to get an alumni boat together.
I know. We
Yeah.
definitely should. That would be fun.
Yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
think we need to get everybody back together and, you
Mm-hmm.
know, put the band back together kind of thing.
Definitely. Yeah, that would be great. That would be so much fun. I know we tried a couple years ago, but we'll have to keep
Yeah.
trying.
There's a
That would be
lot of
fun.
limiting factors, you know, as far
Yeah.
as like cost. I mean, it's such an expensive weekend to be in
Yes.
Boston.
Yep.
Like, you know, cost, transportation, getting there,
Training.
get training because you don't want to just show
Yeah.
it's not like a regular alumni race where you can just hop on the boat. Like you want to be prepared.
Yeah.
There's that aspect of it too. So it's like the time that everybody has to put into it and um
Coxswain. Finding a coxswain is a huge challenge. We had that a few years ago, and luckily the person, so Kelsey, who ended up coxing our boat, was a graduate from the high school that's attached to the master's program that we row with.
yeah.
And I think she was in college, but I think for whatever reason, her college wasn't at the Charles that year. She went to Nazareth.
Mhm.
And so she was free. But I think we had a couple other people we had contacted because we weren't sure if she was going to be able to cox us, and we were worried. And you can't, it would be convenient if you could just say like the team that you know is going to be there. A lot of times it's the
Oh,
juniors, right? Because they're the
yeah.
coxswains. It's
Hmm.
very hard to find adult coxswains that are
I
still doing it.
know.
And they're
No,
usually like already the coxswains for the junior boats and they can't do it for
can't double
both.
row. Yep,
No.
can't do it. So yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
mean that's a big thing, like finding coxswains. And
Yep.
I mean the other thing is keeping people in the sport. I mean, we talk
Yeah.
about this all the time that like, I think that because our country isn't very like sculling forward,
Mm-hmm.
like, it's more likely that you know how to sweep. And then you know how to sweep, but you're almost like a little bit scared of small boats, like
Mm-hmm.
because you're like I don't usually do this by myself, like, the boat's way smaller, like all these different things become this like limiting factor. But because we don't keep people in the sport, we end up with situations like this where like it shouldn't be that hard to
Mm-hmm.
find someone who would want a cox. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
just I think of coxing as just, I mean, it's just such an amazing like position in the boat. I think it has just as much value
Oh
and
yeah.
just as much like training potential
Mm-hmm.
as like being one of the rowers. Like
Yes.
when I was coaching, we did like a coxswain, like I think it was about 6 weeks during winter training, and the coxswains would actually go to like a teacher's room and they would do a bunch of studying. And at that point, what we did was we pulled all of the maps from all of the spring races that we were going to do. We pulled all the information off of Regatta Central and actually had them like read the rules, like,
Mm-hmm.
like all of that stuff. And it came in handy because like I think at one regatta, like the girls had gotten cut off. I think it was at West Side. There was some type of something that happened in, like, I think they did a time trial. They got cut off in the time trial, and she raised her hand at the end of the race and was able to like protest on the water, which is what she would have had to do in order for it to make a difference. Because
Mm-hmm.
there's and like, me as a coach, I'm just like, oh gosh, what are they doing out there? And then they're like, oh yeah, you can be in the final because you got interfered with, and you can be in like lane 6 or something like that. And West Side, like there's
Yeah.
that last lane that's like closest to the break wall is just
Yeah.
like they like to call it a lane, but it really isn't a lane.
Yeah.
And so like I was glad that the girls were gonna get a chance to row this finals race. Sent the rest of the crew home. I was like, you guys can go home. Like, like the trailer was loaded. This is like the last boat to go on. It was a 4, so it could just be plopped right up there. And you know how the parents start to chomp at the bit, like it gets late in the day.
Yeah.
And wouldn't you know, those girls like came off the lines like bats out of hell. Like, they
Wow.
won the race. And like literally
Wow.
it's
Good for
like
them.
yeah, exactly. It's like me, their parents, and then all the other parents from that one race. It was the last race of the day. Like nobody else was there. But
Mm-hmm.
it just goes to show like when your coxswain knows what they're doing, like
Yeah.
they're able to kind of be in these situations and know how to protest. I mean, because
Mm-hmm.
that makes a difference. I mean, that coxswain believed that they would have gone faster. I mean, as a coach, I was like,
Mm-hmm.
especially because it was like the last race of the day. I was kind of hemming and hawing on, how much effort I should, voice
Mm-hmm.
forward for them, but
Mm-hmm.
it's important. Being a coxswain is like
Mm-hmm.
fun too. I
Oh,
enjoy
sure.
sitting in the coxswain seat. Like, I mean, like I'm not the size to sit in the coxswain seat. Like my hips are like way too big and like my legs go numb. But
It is not easy to fit in those seats. Yeah.
uh-uh.
No.
Those seats are so
No.
small. I've never coxed a bow loader. I wouldn't fit. So, like mostly like I've gotten
Mm-hmm.
in 8s and things, and I'll sit on
Mm-hmm.
top of a life jacket
Yep.
or like a tuffet of some sort,
Yeah.
so that I can like not have my legs fall asleep. But yeah, I mean, it's a really great position. I think people think, oh, I want to row, I want to row, I want to row, but like you can get a lot out of being a coxswain. Like,
Oh,
um,
sure. Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
definitely into it.
So my high school coach was a coxswain, and I learned so much from him. And I really think the way he coached made an impact on me when I eventually became a coach, because I never I did I was a coxswain a little bit in high school because I was on the smaller side, and I think I broke my finger for one season. So I was like, they were like, all right, well, you can cox. But mostly speaking, I was not a coxswain, but just the way he worked with us as a team, he really worked closely with the coxswains. So we like the stuff that kind of, I hear my kids say like how there's so much talking in the boat and people are telling each other what to do. And I'm just sometimes like, oh my God, that would never happen back when I was in high school. I mean, we had fun. And if we were really having downtime, like purposely on the water, and our coach was like either there talking with us or not around, we'd be chatting. But talking, especially during a piece or anything like that, especially telling other people what to do,
Exactly.
never allowed. And it just
Mhm.
wasn't even something that people thought of doing, because there was just so many strict, this is the coxswain, they're the coach in the boat, they're the ones. And and then you don't second guess them. We didn't have to second guess them. Our coxswains
Yep.
knew what they were doing.
Doing.
So and they were trained well. And when I was coxing or coaching for high schoolers, I really spent a lot of time, and even in college,
Mhm.
working with the coxswains. And sometimes practices were like very specifically geared towards the coxswains,
Yep.
because they have to challenge themselves too. They have to learn, and they have to build their confidence, and they have to understand in safe scenarios
Mhm.
how much they can push the limit in terms of like, when you're steering,
Mhm.
and if you're in a head of the Charles situation, you need to know how to make that boat move so that sometimes you can get so close but still be
Yeah.
safe, and know how
Yep.
to kind of judge or expect how that boat's going to react. And it's hard to do that if you don't practice it, and if you don't think about incorporating that into your practice. And I know the natural instinct, I know this because I'm bow seat a lot in straight boats,
Mhm.
is to go where you feel safe, right? And
Yeah.
that's usually, for me, you're going to find me in the middle of the river getting yelled at by my coach, like, bring it closer to shore.
Mhm.
It's like,
Yep.
yeah, but to really know where you can be safely, you have to really push those limits and,
Yep.
test them.
And
So,
not every
yeah,
boat responds the same too. Like even
right.
the coxswain who got into I think it was at the practice because we had the other boat's coxswain when we practiced. And I think I forget what she had asked, but like I was like, oh, what a thoughtful question. It was like something about like she's like, what's the response on the steering? Like she was like asking like the boat builder, like, because if you don't, not every boat's built the same. Not every boat's going to have that responsiveness. And then to kind of know like, oh, this boat's going to give you a lot of life when you put that rudder on, or this boat, you're going to have to go full on, like bring that string all the way forward for you and see what you got. Because I mean, without necessarily knowing that, like
Mhm.
like, and I think even as I steer my double, like using the toe steering, like I'm putting it
Mhm.
back in, I was like, oh my gosh, like I really have to think about this, like because the reaction to me, like using blade pressure versus using the actual toe steering was totally different. Like the response time is different, even though it's the same boat,
Sure.
but you're using a different type of medium to make it turn. So it's just, yeah,
Mhm.
the coxswains, my hat's off to them because they do the Lord's work. Because as a rower,
Yeah,
like
well,
I
and
just,
motivating too, right? They got to
yeah.
motivate you, and that is not easy. And there is definitely a a learning curve with that, right? And as a rower, it's important to understand that too, right? Like
Mhm.
when you have a team and you've got people who've been rowing for years, and they've had a more seasoned coxswain, and then they graduate, and then you end up with a new one. There is going to be that some of them are still learning, like, okay, you got to steer, and then what works to motivate, and what works to motivate this boat versus that boat, and like
Yeah.
what kind of feedback they want or don't want, or it's a lot, and people don't realize how hard it is, and I guess how hard it is to do it really well.
To
Like
do it well. Yep.
I don't think some rowers, especially, probably you could say this for high school and college. I bet there's a lot of rowers out there that don't really even know how good a coxswain can be,
Yeah.
because there's just, I don't know if everyone has the opportunities to really learn and work with somebody who knows, like really knows their stuff, is like able to cox at the head of the Charles and
Hmm.
actually motivate their team
Oh, at the
and
same,
navigate the Charles at the same time and not
yeah,
crash into anything,
yeah,
that's a lot. That's tough.
that's a big deal. It
Yeah.
definitely is.